Hi, welcome back to Educator.com's AP Music Theory course. Today's lesson is on modes. So the objectives for this lesson are we're going to learn the modal scales, and we're going to have two ways to be able to come up with them. So the first way, we will derive modes based on their relationship to the major and minor scale patterns that we've already learned. And then we're going to learn modal scales by just their own patterns of whole and half steps. So we'll have two different ways to derive the scales. So the modal scales are different from the major and minor scales in that we can think of them as consisting of being all the white notes of the piano keyboard, and just each different modal scale begins and ends on a different note. So let's look at the Ionian mode first, which is really simple because it's simply C to C. So there's really nothing much to say about that since it's exactly the same as a major scale, but I'll write it here regardless. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So this is Ionian mode. Now let's move up one note of the scale to D. So if we take the notes on the piano keyboard from D to D, then we get what's called the Dorian mode. So this is D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. And now we've got a sort of scale that we haven't encountered before. So let's look at what scale this is close to and how it's different. So it begins with a D, E, F, so it's got a minor third. So we're looking at some sort of variation on the minor scale. And it turns out that the Dorian mode is exactly the same as the minor scale, except for the sixth scale degree, which is raised a half step. So if this was D minor, the only difference would be that this B would be a B flat, D natural minor. So this is Dorian, and the difference is that we've got a lowered sixth. Okay, the next mode we will go up from D will be from E to E. And let's write that up here. So this is the Phrygian mode, and let's examine how this differs from the minor scale since it has a minor third in it. So the first thing to notice is that there's a half step between the first and second notes, which means that this second degree is lowered a step, and then there's a half step between the fifth and sixth notes, so that's the same as in the minor scale and the natural minor scale, and the rest is consistent with the minor scales. So the Phrygian mode just has a lowered second degree. Okay, and moving from E up to F, we take all the white notes on the piano from F to F, and that gives us the Lydian mode. And now we've got a major third, so we're going to compare this to the major scale, and we will see that there's a half step between B and C, which means that this B is raised from where it would be in the major scale. So in the Lydian mode, we have a raised fourth, and the other half step is between the seventh and the tonic, so that's fine, and everything else is the same. So just one note to alter here. Okay, the next mode is Mixolydian mode, and that is G to G. And this mode again has a major third in it, so we're going to compare it to the major scale to find the difference. And we see that the half step is between 3 and 4 here, so that's fine. And then there's another half step between 6 and 7, which means that the 7th scale degree is lowered. So in Mixolydian, we have a lowered 7th compared to a major key. Okay, now we are at A to A, which is the Aeolian mode, and it's exactly the same as the natural minor scale, so there's nothing different to note here. And finally, we are on B to B, which is the Locrian mode. And let's write that up here. So the half step, there's one half step between 1 and 2, so that's different from the minor scale. Since we've got a minor third in it, we're going to compare it to the minor scale. So this is a half step lower. And then we have a half step between 4 and 5, which means that this 5th is lower. And so this 5th being lower means that this scale doesn't have a perfect 5th in the tonic triad. So this B, D, and F is actually a diminished chord. So this mode tends to not be used at all because of this funny characteristic of the tonic triad. I mean, you do see it used in modern music or certain kinds of world music, but in classical music and older music, it was not used because of this tritone between the 1st degree and the 5th degree. So the Locrian mode, can compare it to a minor key, except that it has a lowered 2nd and a lowered 5th. Okay, now that we've gone through all the modal scales, let's do some examples. So a test question might give you a note like an E, and say to provide a Lydian scale on that note. So one way to do this, since we've learned scales and key signatures now, is to know that Lydian mode is major scale with a raised 4th degree. So we can write the notes from E to E. And then the next step would be to make this an E major scale, and I can just simply go back to my key signature knowledge and write out the key signature for E major, and then add those accidentals to the notes. And now all we have to do is raise the 4th degree, and we've got E Lydian. Okay, let's do another example. Let's start with the note F, and let's say we are asked for F Phrygian. So one way to do it would be to think about Phrygian being an alteration of minor. So it's like a minor scale with a lowered 2nd. So we can think about F minor, and we know that it has 4 flats. And now all we have to do is add the flats here. And this gives us a natural minor scale, and to make it a Phrygian scale, we need to lower the 2nd degree. So we'll add a G flat, and this is F Phrygian. Okay, for example 3, let's say we are given a scale and asked to identify what mode it is. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C. So now we need to think about, there's a few ways to do this. The first way would be to see is it a major sort of scale or a minor sort of scale. So this is a major sort of scale, so now we can narrow it down to Ionian, Lydian, and Mixolydian. And then we know that Ionian is just C major, so it can't be, in this case, Ionian. And then Lydian is the major scale with a raised fourth, but there's nothing done to this fourth here since we're in C major, so I can cross that out. But Mixolydian is a major scale with a lowered seventh. And in fact, we've taken this C major scale and lowered the seventh, so this is C Mixolydian. And the other way I could have solved this problem would have been to think about the piano keyboard and the pattern of whole and half steps. It would take a while, but it would be just as effective. So I've got a whole step here, and I can compare it to all of the modes. So of course it's not Ionian and not all of the modes because I know I've got a major third. So I could compare it to either Lydian or Mixolydian. So I can go F, G, A, B, and then C, D, E, F. And immediately I see that we had a whole step between A and B on the Lydian scale, but a half step between E and F on this scale. And so even if I forgot that Lydian has a raised fourth, I could figure it out by just thinking about the white notes in my head. And so this would again lead me to the Mixolydian scale. And for the fourth example, let's identify another scale. So what about E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, sharp, D, E. So let's use our modal knowledge, but with the white keys to think about the whole and half steps. So this is a minor sort of scale because it's got a E and a G natural. So this is either going to be Dorian or Phrygian or Aeolian or Locrian. So let's think about Dorian. So Dorian is D to D, so we'll look at D, E, we'll think in our heads D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. And we'll look at the scale and say E, F sharp, G. So that all matches. There's a half step here and a half step here. And then there's a whole step, whole step, whole step. And then here there's a whole step, whole step, whole step. And then a half step and a whole step. And in fact, this is Dorian. So this is E Dorian. And the other way I could have figured this out would be through key signature knowledge. So knowing that this is some sort of minor scale, I would compare it to E minor, which has one sharp in the key signature. And so I could write out the E minor scale and see that this has a raised sixth. And then I would remember that Dorian is a minor scale with a raised sixth. So this would be E Dorian. Okay, thanks for watching Educator.com's AP Music Theory course. See you next time.